What's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are having a wonderful morning. God bless. I am on the way to the J-O-E. Gonna drop another video today, right now, actually. I don't know why I said it like that, but that's how we're gonna roll. Make sure you subscribe, tell your mama, tell your daddy, tell anybody that loves wrestling to follow the channel. Also follow C3 Ultimate Wrestling for the wrestling matches and promos. Also go to www.c3ultimatewrestling.com for details on shows, merchandise, information about the wrestlers. Let's get into it. This year especially, wrestling has changed. And when I say that it's changed a lot, I won't say that it's AEW, but it's just a lot of things. A lot of things are going more viral, a lot of things are getting popular, and a lot of people are trying things with wrestling. And my question is, well, the discussion for today is, when is it too much? When does it affect the overall product? Because what people have to realize is that, especially with the mainstream companies in WWE and AEW, that sometimes even the bad things, the scandals and everything that happens in those companies, they take a toll, and it does affect wrestling as a whole sometimes, majority of the time. They're doing something crazy and wild, and somebody watches it, or media gets coverage on it, and they play it on TV, and somebody watches it who owns a venue, a hall, a gym, or whatever like that, and then a wrestling company wants to be booked there. They're going to look at what went viral. They're going to look at WWE or AEW. They're going to look at something that happened, and that does take a toll. So, like I said, a lot of people are welcoming a lot of elements in wrestling that was looked down upon, or people were randomly, seldomly, or not even doing it that much because of safety. So there are a few topics I do want to talk about. Okay, let's do the deathmatch wrestling, right? So, deathmatch wrestling, the extreme death, everything, whatever you want to call it, it has been around for a long time. A lot of people spun it. They didn't call it a death match because it's too vulgar, it's too gory. So you can say a whole bunch of matches where just a lot of people are just getting anything from Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace Hardware store, and what they're doing is they're doing whatever. There's a clip of even John Moxley getting hit with a weed whacker. I believe it's John Moxley. It's just like, what the heck is going on? So a lot of the more prominent companies, they try to stay away from that kind of stuff because you want kids to watch it. These deathmatch crowds, there's probably no kids there, and they're adults that just want to see this kind of crazy violence with the light tubes and then the forks and the pizza slice and then the barbed wire trampoline. Yesterday I saw a pigeon spiked wading pool, and they said people were taking hours to even put that. So it's not my cup of tea, personally. I know about one guy that I'm cool with has done a death match. I looked at the pictures afterwards. You didn't even know he was a black guy because he was covered with so much blood. It's not my cup of tea. There's a lot of people that are showing interest. They're saying that like it's on their bucket list now, that they want to do a death match. They want to do one match because it's getting popular. Even with AEW, when they brought in Nick Gage, and people they already saw the Dark Side of the Ring episode, and they seen his story, and yeah, it was crazy. It was messed up, but at the same time, people were looking at that, and that was somebody's hero eventually. Then you have John Moxley saying WWE would want somebody like that. No comment on that. Come on now. But anyway, he comes in, he goes against Jericho, and Jericho is still, regardless of how he is performing now, is still considered one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. So when you have a guy that has done stuff like this for years, and probably people said he wasn't going to do nothing, and then he goes to the number 2 company in America and have a match with Jericho, regardless of how good or bad the match was, that says something. Now I see him booked at a lot of places that just usually have traditional wrestling. And I see a lot of people want to do death matches now. I'm not just saying it's AEW's fault. Some people are just being open to wrestling. They want this on their bucket list. I do not want that on my bucket list because that might be the time you kick the bucket. That's just me. In wrestling, they'll say like some matches make sense. Like if you make it make sense, it can work. But just to have one to me is just something. To me, to have a full show with death matches, that's a little too much. But if you are a deathmatch fan, that's what you see. You pay for that. You want to see that, you're going to be happy. You get your beer, you see people throwing each other off of barbed wire trampolines and body slamming people onto pigeon spiked wading pools. If that's what you want to see, not my cup of tea. But with other companies doing that, that can also mess up the long haul effect of pro wrestling. If I rent out a place and we do that, and then the crowd is appalled, or even if the bookers and the supervisor and the manager of the company, they are appalled, that means that they may be the last wrestling company you see wrestle at the event. When I was wrestling, doing shows in Hammond at the J. Shepherd Community Center, I try my best to make sure that the family, because it's family-friendly entertainment. I always say it, Christian-based, family-friendly. Anybody can come in and watch it. We don't do no profanity. We don't try to do any suggestive themes. We don't try to do any of that stuff. We just want people to be on the edge of their seats. But at the same time, if I was sitting here doing certain matches, that might mess up the deal or the progress I'm having with the company. What a lot of people don't know is that it is very difficult at times to book a wrestling show inside. That's why most shows are outside, because there's dang near no rules. But it's hard to book them inside because some people don't understand the concept of what the wrestling is. To get a ring, to set it up, and everything like that. And then they also put it in the same light as MMA or even boxing or something like that. So some people call it fake, you can call it whatever you want to do it, but a lot of people still consider it in the blood sport category with MMA and boxing. Some people don't want to risk that. They don't want to risk the injury, regardless if you're paying for the insurance or not. Some people just do not want to. And then some of the stuff that shows on TV. When Chris Benoit's situation happened, that affected wrestling so bad, to the whole thing. Like, it was to the point where I wasn't even a wrestler at the time, but I knew that people were just accusing anybody that had muscles, steroids. Anybody that had an attitude problem, steroids. Oh, you're not acting yourself. Oh, you're doing this. So it affects everybody. So, with that being said, if you are a diehard wrestling fan, or if somebody who owns a venue is a diehard wrestling fan, they may understand that there's different kinds of wrestling. You have the traditional, you have the strong style, you have the hardcore, you have the deathmatch, you have the intergender, you have a whole bunch of things. But sometimes, like if the AEW or even WWE did more death matches or something like that, that could mess up the whole product as a whole. Or the local indie show that does this. Because sometimes they don't tell the owners of the building what they're doing because they know that it's a possibility that this might be their last show. So, all in all, if you want to do a death match, that's on you. I'm not doing them. This is not for me. When I saw the black dude turn into a red guy, that was it for me. It was it for me regardless. Like, I'm not just going to sit there and just let you hit me with a weed whacker. I'm sorry. I'm just not. I'm not ready for that life. I'm not about that death match. Going into another topic of what people are being more open to is intergender matches. Now, our last show was guys versus gals, and it was majority intergender match show. So, I've got a lot of positive comments going into it. I also got a few negative comments going into it. Because a lot of people were saying that, it doesn't make sense to have a whole show, majority show, a man versus a woman in a wrestling match. I've defended it. I've had people defending it. I've ignored a lot of stuff because I'm doing something. That was the biggest show to date that we've had. We dang near sold out. We had to get extra seats. The food was selling well. Boy, that food was selling well. We did a great job there. Now, let's go into this. Intergender wrestling, let alone women's wrestling, is just very popular now. The women don't even have to wrestle that great, and they're going to get thousands to millions of views. Like, men and women just want to see women wrestle. They want to see women look cute, walk around in tight clothes and stuff like that. Some of them wrestle very well, some of them don't, but the thing is, sex sells, and a lot of people are pushing for women wrestling. You look at the women wrestlers on WWE and AEW, they're wrestling. Regardless of how you feel about how they are, how they got the position in the company, their character base or whatever like that, a lot of people are tuning in. Look at Title Match. Shout out to Title Match. They have a lot of women-themed wrestling shows from other companies that they show, and they get millions of views. It's just something that they want. When is it too much? To me, if it makes sense, the intergender match, that's cool. It can make sense. I'm not against it. It just has to make sense. If I'm the Big Show, the size of the Big Show, right? And let's say I'm going against somebody the size of Sasha Banks. There is no way on God's green earth Sasha Banks should be German suplexing the Big Show. There's no way Sasha Banks should be power bombing the Big Show. There's no way she should even put the man through a table. That's what I'm saying. I understand. People understands the lingo and what goes on in the locker room and everything like that, but believability can also play a good part. So when you're having somebody the size of Sasha Banks power bombing or power driving or Canadian destroying or German suplexes, like I've just seen a lot of matches where the women are just throwing guys my size. Now I'm 6'1", 200 pounds, but I don't know what happened. But at the same time, I cannot do certain things. I would not allow certain things to happen. The last match, when I went against my wife in June, we had a great match, and people praised us for it. They praised us for the whole event. Shout out to everybody that was on the card. They did everything that they were supposed to do. It makes sense. And that's my take on everything. Everything can work well if it makes sense. Except the black guy turned it into a red guy like a mood ring. But anyway, hey, you want to do that? Do that. I'm trying to move away from that. But yeah, intergender wrestling is very popular. Those views on those matches were the highest I've had on my show, and I'm grateful for people who didn't even show up, shared everything, or been watching or subscribed. For that, I had high subscribe count that month I shared those videos. Shout out to you guys. But if it makes sense, it can work well. You got to look at the longevity of things. You got to be careful when you include a lot of elements into it, because at the end of the day, it could make wrestling and it can break wrestling. There's a lot of shows they're doing, like MMA influence type shows. Those are dope too. You're doing both of them. Both of these elements in the sport come from wrestling in the first place. All of this stuff. So it works well. It doesn't work well when it looks fake. And it does. When an MMA fighter is fighting a wrestler and then the MMA fighter doesn't know how to pull and sell a punch or throw one to protect the person, it is a problem. And I've seen a lot of it. And it is not interesting to me no more. The strikes are not interesting no more. We mess up. I sucked with punches at one point. But at the same time, it just sucks. I've seen wrestling matches where it looks like a movie scene with no ring and the Jackie Chan. You know what I'm talking about. Jonte spoke about it. Shout out to Jonte. One of my favorite videos is on the YouTube page. But it's like, Jesus Christ. Now we're wrestling with no ring on purpose now. Like, what's going on here? So I think that you have to be smart with it, but you have to protect the business. And I think that's just an issue, is that the business is so exposed now that nobody cares to protect it, because everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants to go viral. The Walmart boys, I bring this up a lot. They went to Walmart, did things that we trained to do in a wrestling ring. They did it in a Walmart, went viral. Not only did they go viral, they got booked for shows on the merit of them going to Walmart and doing things, and people thought they looked good. Superhuman, I believe that's his name. The guy takes his shirt off, flips, does anything, and got booked for wrestling shows. And the thing is, it's making the companies money. But at the end of the day, with longevity, what happens then? What happens when that's enough? What happens when wrestling possibly declines? I'm not trying to speak negative here, but let's be honest. All it takes is one big bad thing to happen, and it can make wrestling views go down. And I'm not saying die-hard fans. I'm talking about casual, the fans you want to bring in, and that's the problem. That's the problem with wrestling today. And Jonte, my brother Jonte, has spoke about this before. It's been trashed because there's not a lot of companies, even WWE sometimes, but and AEW at times too. But there's no desire, no will to try to bring in more people. It's just make this amount of money. If you can make $500,000, but you can also make $1 million if you try to reach out to that, you should try to go for the million, but try to keep the 500,000 safely. But it's just not like that. I mean, look at the views. They used to get over millions of views, damn near 10 million. Now it's 1.2, 2 million. Like, come on, man. Like, it has changed drastically. But let's say that Roman Reigns does a death match, right? And there's blood everywhere, and it's horrible. That could mess up wrestling for a lot of people that do independent shows, because you might not know who a lot of wrestlers are. You might not even know who Roman Reigns is, but everybody knows who WWE is. If WWE turns over that leaf and tries to do more things like that, that might put an effect even on AEW and other companies as well. You have a lot of people that are against hardcore matches and then are against intergender and are against death matches, because a lot of companies do these death matches, and then a lot of people in the area, they hear about it, they read about it, and then they're like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with nobody cutting each other and stuff like that. When I explain what pro wrestling is to people, they still don't hear what pro wrestling is to people. I tell people it's a ring, do professional, and all of that stuff. I give some names of wrestlers that they probably know, and they still be like, oh, so when you do your boxing, or when you do your MMA, or when you do your, what's another one? Mat wrestling or something like that. It's just like, I've already told you 25 times, Brenda, that this is professional wrestling. It's way different. You said you knew who The Rock was. You know The Rock isn't doing anything. That girl who did this, who got rich. Anyway, that's what I'm saying. Be careful out there. If you want to do this stuff, be careful. Wrestling sometimes is unforgiving to the body. You can hurt yourself. You'll never be 100%. You can scar yourself. You can scar others. You can unfortunately kill somebody, or you can die in the ring. So when you do things, matches and stuff like that, you gotta be careful. And we also gotta keep wrestling protected. We don't have to tell everybody everything. I don't tell everybody everything, because if you know about the business, you know what it is. And what you don't want to do is just, people do anything for views nowadays. And wrestling has just been so different. And like I said, it has changed. A lot of people are welcoming more kinds of matches. Like now, people will actually want a death match or whatever like that. Or call themselves king of the death matches and stuff like that. And then when you have a guy who was popular on the internet, like Matt Cardona, formerly known as Zack Ryder, and even Jon Moxley, they're facing Nick Gage, and they're winning titles and stuff like that. That puts the spotlight on that company, and that's put the spotlight on death matches. And now a lot of people, and even probably upcoming guys, are going to be like, okay, I want to do death matches. I want to do intergender matches and stuff like that. If it makes sense, it makes sense. But if not, you're just doing it to do it. That's on you too. You're a grown man. I can't tell you what to do. But a lot of us know how hard it is to even get a book show. And then if there's no book shows, what happens? What if they start shutting us down from going outside? But like I said, you have a crowd that wants to see that, and that makes them a lot of money. So I don't think that everything needs to be in wrestling, but I'm not saying everything is not in wrestling. What I'm saying is a lot of things that were not supported, even intergender. Like I said, I had my reserve about intergender too, but I had to make sure that it made sense 100%. And I think a lot of people are just doing them just to make money and quick cash money. Mine made sense. Mine did story. I'm not saying everything was executed perfectly. I'm not saying I'm a perfect booker, perfect promoter, perfect wrestler. But these are the kind of things that I do think about and also take into accountability. And, hardcore matches can make sense. But then when it's an oversaturation, and that's my final point, I think the issue is that so many people are doing it. And I understand there are many wrestling companies out here that are basically doing things to make money. There's no storylines, there's no psychology, there's nothing, because some people just want to see wrestling. But then it's not special anymore. WWE has a problem with triple threat matches. A lot of people talk about their rematches, but don't want to talk about AEW's lack of rematches, which they have a big lack of rematches. Hey, don't shoot the messenger. But at the same time, WWE has been doing a lot of triple threat matches since this year started. And I used to love triple threat matches. Now I'm tired of triple threat matches. How many threat matches we gotta see? Majority of them be the women's matches. For the women's titles, they're always like a triple threat. I caught a triple threat when Sasha Banks came back at Extreme Rules. I just knew. The Raw women's title. Charlotte has been in so many triple threats. Rhea Ripley. Come on, man. Like, it's so many triple threats. So it's like an oversaturation, and then nobody wants to see it, or we get tired of it. Oh, here we go again. Here we go again. AEW has cage matches every 2 months. Now, I will say that they're okay, they're decent, or whatever like that, but they do an oversaturation of all kind of no DQ matches. You call it a lights out match, a gym stadium match, brawl for it all. I know I'm just joking, but they have oversaturation of matches too, and it's like, Jesus Christ, like, spread it out a little bit, make people want it, make people want to see it, make new fans and stuff like that. Hype it up. If you're having cage matches every 2 months or every 3 months, that's gonna dry out for some people who actually just want to see wrestling and stuff like that. People gave AEW a chance, and then some people just went back to WWE. Some people stayed watching AEW and stopped watching WWE. But that's just it. When you have an oversaturation of things, it's a big thing. When 3 companies are in the same area, then they all have death matches in the same month, that's an oversaturation of death matches, especially if it affects the gate and the pay, because nobody sees it, because everybody's sick of it, aren't seeing it. Or if you're booking the same people, going against the same people in the same kind of matches in the same area with 3 different companies, that's also oversaturation. You have to be aware of your product. You have to be aware of the competition. If you consider them competition, you have to be aware of everything that goes on to make your product different. Oh, there was a lot of table matches. Okay, either I can make it different, or I can hold off on it to when nobody else is doing it. That way you protect your brand and you protect the business in a whole. But a lot of it is all about money, man. There's room for stuff. If it makes sense, watch oversaturation of product and material. You do have to pay attention, and that's why a lot of people don't make as much money as they should, because a lot of people just do it because everybody else is doing it or it went viral. And you expose the business more than what it already is, because you book these guys who are wrestlers, who aren't wrestlers, who are porn stars. Like, I've seen all kind of stuff within the last few years just to go viral. And I've also seen those same companies no longer be under operation, or struggling, or getting together, or not paying guys that they're supposed to pay them because they brought in this person, or they're in debt. So now you're trying to do a reunion tour and not pay wrestlers because you want to go out with a bang and you want to make money but not pay them. I've seen all of it. Wrestling can be complicated sometimes. That's the post. That's it. That's the video. I'm at work. Make sure you guys be safe out there. Be careful out there. Wrestling is fun. Wrestling is complicated. Wrestling, it needs to be protected again. This is Chris Classic. Let's take it home.